Well, hello there, and welcome to our Knitting Circle Live event today. I am Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing, and today we're going to talk about super squishy headbands and how to make a really easy one. I'm using bulky weight yarn and size 11 needles. Now, if you click on the link in the chat that our friendly host is going to put there, you can download a pattern. Now, we did just discover a little while ago that the name of the pattern is slightly misleading. It says it's a twisted stockinette stitch headband. It is not, but it is a really cool headband. It's a really interesting one row repeat, which I'm going to teach you. And then we're going to go over how to assemble the headband to get the little twist in the front, but it's not twisted stockinette stitch. So stand by and we're going to have some fun. So let me switch over to my hand camera from my face camera so you guys can see what's going on. And here we are. Yay. Okay. All this technological wizardry, I'm telling you. Now let's get our lights back on. I have to move them when my face is on camera or else you will all be blinded. As usual, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them in the chat room, and then our friendly host will put them where I can see them, and then I will answer them as we go. So this little swatch we have going on right here. So this is stockinette stitch, in which we have a smooth side, which is the knit side, and we have the lumpy bumpy side, which is the purl side. Stockinette is the stitch that most people learn when they're getting started, and it's really easy to do. However, it's not completely reversible. So this stitch that we have written in the pattern, and I swear I'm going to change the title of the pattern, but I'm not going to change any of the stitch pattern because it's a really cool stitch pattern. It's just a one row repeat. It alternates slipped and wrapped stitches with knit ones. So what you get, if I pull this side to side, you can see it's almost a ribbing variation. You can see the purl valleys in there. But because of the way the slipped stitches and the wraps go, it pulls it in widthwise. So look how much more narrow this is in this stitch than it is in the stockinette stitch. It's just a really interesting stitch to learn. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we've done other slipped stitch classes here on the lives, but most of the time they're slipped in a two-color project so you can see the alternate color. What's interesting to me about this stitch is you're slipping it not because of color work, but because of the actual mechanics of the stitch. And actually, while we're thinking about it, look how much thicker that is than the stockinette stitch side. And again, if you're going to head to knit this pattern, you're not going to have a stockinette piece on there. You're going to have just the stitch pattern we're learning. I put it on there so we could compare and contrast. So let's talk a little more about slip stitches than we have in the past. But again, we're interested in the mechanics of the stitch. This is not an instance in which we're doing color work. So the pattern tells you slip 1, WYIF. And WYIF means with yarn in front. So the yarn is in the front of the work as if to purl. Now I am slipping all of my stitches purlwise. It doesn't tell me to do that in the instructions. But the general standard in knitting is if it doesn't tell you otherwise, assume that they want you to slip the stitches purlwise. If they want you to slip them knitwise, it'll usually tell you in the instructions somewhere. So my yarn's in front. I have slipped one purlwise. Now the next stitch is a knit stitch. I want to be careful to get my yarn between the needles over to the back, not over. This is not brioche. I do not want to make a bark. I do not want to add a yarn over. I want to make sure the yarn gets to the back between the needles and does not create an extra stitch. And then I'm going to knit one. And I'm going to repeat that over and over. So I have to get my yarn to the front. Again, making sure that I'm bringing it between the needles and not over. I do not want to add a stitch where one does not belong. With yarn in front, slip one purlwise. Next one is knit one, have to get that yarn to the back. So you see what's happening? Is this little working yarn right here is going across the purl stitch. It's almost like a wrap stitch, but not quite. But what it's doing is it's pulling these gigundo knit stitches so they're closer together widthwise. Now I'm not yanking on it. You can see as I'm knitting, I'm not like, oh, holy crap, I'm pulling this so tight because I'm deliberately trying to make it pull in widthwise. This is just something that happens with this particular kind of stitch. And I'm not worried about an end stitch or a border or anything like that because it's making a very nice edging all on its own. So here I am at the end of the row. Now the pattern that you've downloaded tells you to cast on 18. I only cast on 12 because I wanted the row to go faster here for class. But look at that nice edging. And I'm not doing anything fancy. That's doing it all by itself. And here it is on the other side. So it's just a really interesting way to get a thick, squishy fabric. I don't know if I would do a sweater out of this because holy Pete, that would be a lot of yarn. It would be super warm. The other thing you do need to remember with slip stitches is you don't get a lot of height quickly because the slipped stitches make sure that the work doesn't grow in height as quickly as it would if you were just doing stockinette stitch. It's going to take you a lot of rows to get where you want to go. But let's look again. We're going to slip one with yarn in front. Bring that yarn to, oop, I lost it. Bring that yarn to the back. Knit one. Slip one with yarn in front. Remember, I'm slipping purlwise. Knit one. Slip one with yarn in front. Knit one. So you have to put your work down. So now one good thing about this, well, one of many good things about this, it's only one row to remember. So there's no right side, wrong side. And again, the great news about that is it's reversible because it looks good on both sides. Also, when you put your work down because the phone rang or the television show got interesting or the dog barked or you got hungry and needed a snack, you don't have to remember what row you're on because there's only one row to be on. You can cast on any multiple of 2 stitches and this stitch will work. So that's a very good thing to know. And again, what you're getting is these elongated stitches. It does almost look like a brioche or a fisherman's rib. We have some content on the Knitting Circle on brioche and on fisherman's rib. But those brioche needs you to wrap the stitch over the needle and fisherman's rib needs you to work in the stitch below, where this is simply knitting and slipping. So your slipped stitches look like purl bumps, right? If I pull this work apart. So if you can't remember which is a knit and which is a slip, if you pull your work apart widthwise, like I'm doing here, these columns, you see the column? That's going to be a knit. What looks like a purl bump up by your needle, that's going to be your slip one with yarn in front. So let me just do one more row. Slip one with yarn in front, knit one. Slip one with yarn in front, knit one. I don't know what it's like where you guys are. It's supposed to go below 0 here where I am next week. So this would be a very good headband ear warmer kind of thing to knit up this weekend and try and keep your ears on your head next week when it goes below 0. I'm in the Midwest. But even my friends on the East Coast have been complaining how cold it is. And doing this in a bulky yarn will make it go very quickly and be super warm. Now, speaking of that, you could make this headband in any kind of yarn that you had, as long as you had the appropriate needles. And as I said earlier, you would just have to remember to cast on a multiple of 2 stitches. So for the pattern, it says to just keep going till it's however long the pattern says, and then you're going to bind off your stitches, and then you're going to fold each end as in half as shown below. So the other thing I wanted to show you is how to make that little twisty on the front. I always say it looks like a 1920s turban from the spa, like you went to the spa and you had your towel on your head, wrapped turban style. I love these little twists. And it's one of those things, you can see it in the photo, but it makes a lot more sense if you can watch somebody do it. Now, since I have not knit my entire headband here, just for the purposes of doing this on camera, I'm going to use this end, which was my cast on end of my stockinette stitch. And I'm going to use a swatch from a class we did a couple of weeks ago. This was the reversible cable swatch. And again, I'm just doing it so that you can see what happens to the two sides. And one thing we never run out of here in the Hooked for Life studio is swatches. I am always grateful that you can't see the area around my feet, which tends to be littered with swatches and yarn and knitting needles and crochet hooks and sewing needles and all that kind of stuff. So when it is time to put my headband together, if I wasn't using this stitch, I would want to pay a little attention to right side, wrong side. I would want my right sides with each other and my wrong sides facing me. But because we're using this stitch, again, ignore this. This is just what I'm using because it's there. But because this is reversible, and frankly, this is reversible, it doesn't really matter. So what you want to do is take the one that's in your left hand and you want to make a C shape. Do you see how that is the letter C right here? Then I'm going to take my other piece. So it's the other piece of the headband. It's not a separate piece like I have here. Again, I'm just being goofy because I didn't have time to knit a whole headband this morning. And I'm going to make this into a C shape also. So here's my two C shapes. And I'm going to take this one and turn it in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to sandwich them like this. And again, I'm just doing this in two different colors so you can see what's happening. So here is one C, and here is my backwards C, and that is what is going to make the twist. So let me fiddle with this a minute to make sure it's nice. I want to grab my the yarn that I want to sew with. You want a big fat tapestry needle for this, which I've already threaded. And again, remember, you'll have two sides of one piece. You'll have the two sides of your headband. So no matter what pattern you're doing, no matter what stitch is going on, you want to make sure that these guys are all pretty equal. All right, so there's one C, there's my backwards C. Now, since I decided to use this working yarn and it's on this side, all I'm going to do is sort of an overcast stitch, and I want to make sure I go under all the legs of the stitches so it's nice and neat. Now, if you're making the headband the way we have given you, oops, see, I forgot my purple guy back here and I need him. If you are making your headband following the instructions from the download that we have given you, you will have the same number of stitches on both sides. So that's really easy to see. Again, I may not, just because I had, I'm using two different swatches from two different projects, but I'm making sure I'm going under the first layer, the second layer, the third layer, the fourth layer. And I want to stitch this pretty tightly. And I'm just bringing it over, making sure to go through all the layers and catch all the legs of the stitch that I can. Again, noting that on your headband, you're going to have the same number of stitches on both pieces, so it'll be really easy to make sure it all comes out even. I'm sort of fudging a little bit. And here we go. One more time, if you have any questions, now's a good time to ask. Because I don't have that much left to do, and then we will have our big reveal, and then we'll be done. It's really easy to sort of forget that third layer, so you do want to make sure. Oops, I got caught in here. You don't want to try and do a buttonhole stitch or anything. You're just doing an overcast. I'm going to put one more in to make sure I have all my little edges nailed down. I don't want anybody flopping in the breeze. And that, I'm just going to weave that end in. Took a little extra knot here. I'm going to go ahead and weave it into the seam. I could put it through some of the stitches if I wanted, but this seam is pretty sturdy since I pulled it too tight, so I'm not super worried about anything coming out. And remember, as I said earlier, we have that seam pulled very tightly. You want that, that little twist to stay firm. I'm going to go back one more time so I don't have my ends near the end. Okay, so here's my two C shapes sewn all together. Remember, this would all be one big piece. And then I'm going to turn it to the right side and pull it all out. And there is my twist. Again, it's looking a little silly right now just because I used two random swatches. But this gives you the twist that makes your headband look the way you want it to look. The other thing I like about this twisted knot thing is it gives you some elasticity. If you have bigger hair or smaller hair, or you put your ear warmer on over a hat or whatever, it gives you a little bit of play. You don't have to have it exactly the circumference of your head. So let's see, we have some input from our friendly viewers. Pamela says, I've made a version of the twisted headband in the past. They are fun to make and wear. And again, it's going to be 4 below 0 here next week. I highly recommend you get off this live and go make one right now because you're going to need it. How do you get a different color on the top? If I wanted, I'm not sure what you mean by the top. If you wanted 2 colors like I had here, you would knit half in one color and knit half in the other color. One of the things they did in the headband that we have the picture of on the pattern, let's see if I can get a better picture of it. That's a color changing yarn. So as whoever knitted this one specifically, as they knitted, the yarn changed color, and that's how they got 2 colors. But since you're essentially knitting one long strip that goes around, you could change colors at any point that you wanted to. Now, if you wanted sort of the top half to be a different color than the bottom half, then that's something that you would do while you were knitting. You could knit half your stitches in one color and let's see if I can do that since we seem to have time. What do I have in the way of yarn? Let me pick some yarn up off the floor and see what we can do. So let's see, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I did 14. So half and half is not going to really work because that would be 7. And I want an even number. So I would have cast on probably 12 or 16. So slip one with yarn in front, knit one, slip one with yarn in front, knit one, slip one with yarn in front, knit one. So I think what I would do in this case is add my second color here. I'm just going to pull up a fold. I'm going to weave that tail in later. But I want my tail on the back because I want to bring the yarn forward to slip. So I'll slip one, knit one. Let's see what this looks like. I honestly have no idea. It's always an adventure here on the lives because I'm willing to try anything you guys want me to try. Now, because I'm slipping stitches, if you look here, I have essentially a 2-color row on that side. And that is because when you slip a stitch, obviously it doesn't change color. When you slip a stitch, it's the color that you knit the stitch in. It has nothing to do with the color that you're working with. But let's just put a couple more rows on here and see what it does. Let me untwist my knitting needle. The joys of circular needles in a small space. And now we're going to get rid of the second color because you'll notice as you're working, you're not slipping the same stitch on every row. That's why it has to be an even number of stitches. Because again, if you had slipped the same stitch on every row, you wouldn't grow in height. It wouldn't be knitting. It would be a hot mess. So then I would, let's see, where's my pink working yarn? 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, no, I need to knit this guy. Because again, I want it an even number. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And then I'm going to slip one with yarn in front, but I'm going to want to make sure that my yarns go one. So it's kind of going to be like Intarsia. I'm going to make sure that we're going to get a whole nother class here. I want to make sure that my new color consistently comes under my old color, because otherwise I'm going to have a big hole. So I'm going to bring my yarn forward, slip one. Let's do that again on the other side where you can see better. I love when you guys ask questions. It just helps all kinds of things happen. So let me just pull up some more yarn. We'll do one more row. Slip one with yarn in front. Get one. And doing my color change after an even number of stitches. And now I'm going to switch to the purple. So I'm going to bring, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. So once again, and it's happening on the side that is away from me, which I'm absolutely fine with, because this doesn't have a right side, wrong side. It looks like it's always going to happen away from me, but that's fine. I'm going to bring my new color, which in this case is the purple, because I'm going this way, the purple under the pink. Bring it forward. So this is an Intarsia style color change. If you don't do that, what you're going to wind up with is two pieces that are not joined at all, which would be problematic. I'm going to do that one more time just to make sure I'm right, but I think I am. If we have any other questions, now's a good time. Let's do one more row. Slip one with yarn in front. Get one, etc. Working in an even number of stitches. Slip one, knit one. We're going to need to slip. So again, I'm going to have to take that yarn to the back and bring it under the old color and bring it forward. Because if I don't do that, they're not going to join. It's just going to wind up being two stripes that are not joined in the middle, which would not be what we were after. So that twist is keeping them joined from side to side. And then when I put my headband together, I would have one color on the top and one color on the bottom. And when I did my bind off, I would bind off in the color I was working in. So I hope that helps. I don't see any more questions. So let's see if I can switch this without blinding anybody. So once again, I am Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing here on behalf of the Knitting Circle. I am so thankful that you joined us today. You should join the Knitting Circle if you haven't already. We have all kinds of cool stuff there for you to look at. And thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you again here really soon. Bye-bye.